Hello, my name is Sophia Terrio. I'm a writer, musician, and creative, and today we're going to be talking about something that's a little controversial in the creative space, and that is AI. I know this is a hot topic right now, and I encourage you to leave comments down below on your opinions and thoughts on the matter. However, please keep the comments respectful and kind. Folks who have different opinions than you might be less informed, misinformed, or might just come at the problem from a different angle. I'm going to be sharing some pretty strong opinions in this video, and if you disagree with them, well, you're allowed to. This is an ongoing conversation about ethics, content ownership, and other pieces of the creative process that are philosophical in nature, but also that have massive concrete implications on people's livelihoods. So please remember to be kind when you're leaving your response. At the end of this video, I also have a couple of really special announcements, and I'd love for you to stick around until then. Let's dive in. If you're new to the creative community, first of all, welcome. And second of all, we're a little concerned about AI. But our concern is not as simple as we're gonna lose our jobs. And listen, art has existed for all of humanity as far as we can tell, and even if AI learned how to write a book or paint a painting as well as a human, we would still make art. It's just a human thing to do. But right now, a lot of concern is about navigating systems that are not built for AI. And because of that, authors and writers fear the death of our industry. AI models, those that are successful, require massive amounts of information to learn from. We're talking every single book they can get their hands on. But writers are not always being compensated for that material, nor are they consenting. And while AI companies might argue fair use allows them to use this material in educational ways, it's also pretty clear they're directly profiting from that use. I had a conversation with Gemini, an AI model created by Google, about these controversies. I wanted the AI's perspective, I guess, and I don't know anyone at Google. And Gemini said, while AI companies often argue fair use, using copyrighted material for transformative purposes like research or education, creators contend that training a commercial product for profit doesn't fit this definition, especially when the output directly competes with their work. And later said, some legal arguments suggest that the copying involved in training is so ephemeral and incidental that it doesn't meet the threshold for copyright infringement. In essence, they're not plagiarizing because they didn't take an entire paragraph. They just took the essence of the paragraph. I think AI companies are arguing here that educating their AI systems are innovating or researching some piece of the technological sphere that we didn't ask for. And massive amounts of marketing is focused on creating this image of AI that makes it seem like a super positive tool that allows us to live our lives with ease and comfort. Let AI do the thinking for you. But if AI really was that obviously helpful, they wouldn't have to spend so much money marketing it to us. Critical and creative thinking is a muscle that we have to practice in order to maintain. If we want to solve problems using our minds, the next time we encounter that similar problem, it gets a little easier. Every time we do something, our brains reinforce that neural pathway, making those connections easier and faster. Biologically, we're practicing problem solving every time we do it, and getting faster and more efficient. That's why if your teacher assigns you an argumentative essay and you use AI to write it, you might have a harder time in the future making a well-reasoned argument, expressing yourself through writing, and probably doing a dozen other soft skills like proper research that will come in handy in the rest of your life, no matter what you end up doing. And on the topic of AI used for schoolwork, this is yet another pinch point for the writing community. As AI gets better and better, teachers have a harder and harder time figuring out when their students are using it. And now student essays are getting flagged as AI for using M dashes because that's something authors do in novels and have done for a long time. It's something most teachers don't expect their students to know. It's kind of a complex piece of grammar that most schools don't teach anymore. And it's a whole meme that authors love M dashes and we can't get enough of them. LLMs learn how to reproduce language and grammar by consuming massive amounts of media media with M dashes in it. LLM, by the way, stands for Large Language Model and is the type of AI that we're talking about. But if LLMs are making AI work noticeable or distinctly inhuman because of their impeccable grammatical knowledge, we will be putting all well-edited and properly grammatical work under the microscope. And if the average reader has a hard time telling AI M dashes apart from human M dashes, it may become increasingly difficult to determine when AI was and was not used in the creation of certain work. But let's argue that the only issue writers have is the fair use argument. In our conversation, Gemini said, AI companies argue that training an LLM is a transformative process. The AI doesn't store copies of the original works. Instead, it learns patterns, relationships, grammar, and style. The output is a new creation, not a reproduction of the original. If you learn how to paint by going to the Louvre and recreating the works of the masters, it's the same as AI learning to write a novel by reading every novel on the planet. And by the way, that's a really common way to learn painting, or has been for centuries. And while authors are actively not giving their permission to AI companies to use their work, I guess the argument here is that painters like Rembrandt can't stop you from going to the Louvre and practicing their technique. But there's a big difference. Learning how to paint from Rembrandt does not in any way devalue Rembrandt's work. It is not going to crumble the industry of painting. Even in a writing context, if I read all of Holly Black's books, me writing a Holly Black-esque book is not going to put Holly Black out of business. AI, on the other hand, still might. When writers are concerned about AI models learning how to write novels, it's not because we're offended that AI can do something that we can too. It's that no publishing company would pay a human thousands of dollars to write a novel, which can take years, when they could ask a machine to do it in 12 minutes for free. The traditional publishing industry, or non-self-publishing, has been notoriously slow in putting out new works, and there are so many factors involved in that, including the shortage of printers, the several rounds of editing, and professionals involved in the work, and the massive amounts of time it takes for writers to create the material in the first place. I also want to note AI is entering more than the writer's space within the publishing industry, but I'm gonna focus on the writer's space because that's the one I'm most familiar with. Putting out one book a year is breakneck speed. Brandon Sanderson is insane. But the problem is that trends and marketing move way faster. In our digital age, it's way easier, cheaper, and faster to self-publish a book than it has ever been for traditional publishing. But unfortunately, the thing being sacrificed for speed and cheapness is quality. In the traditional publishing model, books go through several rounds of editing with lots of different professionals. Lots of money is invested into the cover design, the layout, and everything else that makes a good quality product with as few errors as possible. Folks who self-publish often don't have the capital to invest that much into publishing their own book, and they might not make that money back. And as a result, they might even lose money paying for editors and cover designers, or they might just try to do it themselves without the expertise of a professional. It's not a secret that human-authored self-published books are sometimes lacking in quality. Don't get me wrong, there are gems that are self-published. Beautiful, wonderful gems. But as a reader, how are you supposed to know before you buy it and start reading? And if AI books flood the market, how are readers supposed to find and support authors who can't compete with the AI cheap prices? If it costs money and time to create a book the human way, and an AI can do it for free, companies are going to outprice human authors every time. We saw a similar shift when music streaming platforms came out. All of a sudden, only huge artists make any money at all from their music. Where one fan used to buy a CD for $10, an artist now needs 2,500 streams to make that same $10 on Spotify. And even today, musical artists struggle to make money from music alone and make most of their money selling merch. If that happened to the book world, it would not be financially feasible to be a writer. Already, before AI even entered the chat, writers have been significantly underpaid when you take into account how much time is put into the work they do. If a writer sells a book to a publisher for an average $25,000 advance, they will only get paid half of that up front. So let's say they they get $12,500 within the span of 1 year. They would still make less than the federal minimum wage in the United States. Frequently, full-time authors either have a side gig, like a YouTube channel, or a spouse supporting the majority of the household income. By the way, the average income for a single person in 2023 in the United States is about $65,000, according to Discover credit card. Even if you did make your whole $25,000 in 1 year, you would still only make 38% of the average income in 2023. But what if we introduce AI into the equation? If you owned a publishing company trying to capitalize on a trend, would you rather wait a year and pay $25,000 to your author, or pay nothing and have it by the end of the day? If a publishing company uses AI to write a book, does that book belong to the publishing company or to the AI model? In my conversation with Gemini, it said, "This is precisely where the line is becoming increasingly blurry, and it's a huge source of anxiety and debate. My perspective is that the distinction is becoming less about pure versus AI generated and more about the degree of AI involvement and human intent/authorship. There is a large spectrum on how much AI is being used to create a work. And while there are some systems like Grammarly that only tweak your authorial voice here and there, you still did most of the idea generation and writing, and the AI simply corrected your work. Even here, though, Grammarly might change parts of the writing that even a traditional human editor would not. By this, I mean there are many times in a novel when it's okay to go against grammatical convention, and Grammarly's not perfect. Sometimes your unique voice in your wording is what makes the novel feel like you. But there are deeper layers of AI generation. If I prompt AI to make something for me, say I tell Gemini to write me a children's book, does that book belong to me or to Gemini? In the writing world, we often say ideas are cheap. I could tell you to write a book about a steamboat and a duck, but if you wrote that book, it wouldn't be mine. It would be your book. You wrote it. But there are also ghostwriters who write entire books under someone else's name and sell them all the rights to it. So it seems that at least part of the debate is about how AI models fit into these pre-existing categories, whether AI companies can claim authorship or whether they have the right to, based on their own claim of fair use. From where I'm sitting, no matter who the work belongs to or how the legality all shakes out, human authors are still going to take the biggest hit. I encourage you to continue the conversation below with respect and kindness, and I'll respond to as many comments as I can. And speaking of continuing conversations, I'm going to be launching my Patreon on August 8th, which is so exciting! If you subscribe there, you'll have access to my Discord server where you can continue to kindly debate this topic, as well as talk about all sorts of fun, creative stuff in our little community. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and go ahead and like this video if you liked it. It means a lot. Thank you so much for watching, friends, and as always, happy creating!